August 13th, 2007. 778 Park Avenue, Manhattan. The heart stops in the afternoon. Brooke Astor is 105 years old. She dies in the apartment overlooking Central Park. The doctors have done what they can. They cannot give her back the years. The apartment is filled with museum-quality art, paintings, sculptures, antiques, objects worth millions. 18th-century French furniture, Chinese porcelain, a Childe Hassam painting once hung in the living room, flags Fifth Avenue, worth $10 million. But Anthony sold it in 2002, told his mother she needed the money, kept $2 million as commission for himself. The painting is gone now, sold 5 years ago. But other valuable objects remain. The apartment is still worth millions. In the bedroom, 1 room away, the sheets bear evidence of inadequate care. This is not metaphor. This is documented fact, for months, perhaps years before the courts intervened. Brooke Astor lay on sheets that were not changed regularly. The household budget had been reduced. Staff had been dismissed. The woman who gave away $195 million to libraries and museums and parks spent her final years in conditions a prosecutor will later call Dickensian. The valuable objects surround her, but the sheets are not changed. In 2004, when Brooke had advanced Alzheimer's and could not recognize her own son, someone added a codicil to her will. The codicil redirected $60 million from charities to Anthony. The main property would remain with Anthony instead of being sold for charity. The codicil was signed by a woman who could no longer remember what year it was. A set of clean sheets costs $200. Anthony had already taken $2 million from the painting sale 2 years earlier. The sheets were not changed. Brooke Astor dies on this August afternoon. Not in squalor anymore, the courts fixed that 18 months earlier. But how long before they intervened? How many days did America's most celebrated philanthropist endure these conditions while her son planned how to divide her fortune? The question the trial will try to answer. Can you give away everything and still end up with nothing? Brooke's estate is worth approximately $130 million when she dies. Her son will be indicted for stealing $60 million of it. But first, we must understand how she got the money at all. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Learned to Perform, Born into Nothing. March 30th, 1902, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Roberta Brooke Russell is born into a world that will teach her a very specific lesson: you can have status without money. And money is what matters. Her father is Major General John Henry Russell, Jr., United States Marine Corps. This means something. Military families have status. They are invited to certain parties. They are respected. But they do not have wealth. They live on military pay. They move constantly: Haiti, China, the Philippines, back to the United States, then overseas again. They occupy borrowed houses on military bases. They own what fits in trunks. Her mother, Mabel Hornby Howard, understands the difference between being respectable and being rich. She teaches her daughter to watch, to observe, to notice how wealthy women move through rooms, how they speak, how they hold themselves. The casual confidence that comes from never worrying about money. Brooke learns. She is a beautiful child. Then, a beautiful young woman. Beauty is currency when you have no other currency. Charm is power when you have no other power. She moves through her childhood like a visitor in other people's houses, because that is what she is. The general's daughter. Welcome everywhere, belonging nowhere. A patchwork child. She will later call herself, stitched together from different places, different borrowed rooms, different temporary homes. What this creates is a girl who can perform, who can enter any room and make the people in that room feel she is doing them a favor by being there, who can marry wealth because she has learned exactly how wealth wants to be treated. She is practicing. She does not know it yet, but everything in her childhood is preparation for a role she will play perfectly when the time comes. The role is Mrs. Vincent Astor. But first, she must rehearse. The practice marriages. 1919. Brooke Russell is 17 years old. She marries J. Dryden Cuser. He is older. He is wealthy. The Cusa family fortune comes from utilities and real estate. He can give her what her father's military salary cannot: money, houses, security. The marriage produces one child. Anthony Dryden Cusa, born May 30th, 1924. She learns how to be a wealthy man's wife, how to manage households, how to host, how to spend money that is not hers as though it has always been hers, how to move through rooms filled with expensive things and touch nothing with hesitation. The marriage fails. Divorce, 1930. She is 28 years old. She has a 6-year-old son. This is 1930. The Depression has just begun. She has no money of her own. Being beautiful and charming is not enough anymore. She needs another husband. 1932. She marries Charles Henry Marshall, a stockbroker, another attempt at security. He adopts her son. Anthony Dryden Cusa becomes Anthony Marshall. New father, new name, new chance. The boy is 8 years old when his name changes. Old enough to remember who he was. Old enough to understand what it means when your mother erases your first father and replaces him with a second. Old enough to learn that identity is negotiable, that family is transactional, that love is conditional on money. This marriage lasts 20 years, long enough to raise Anthony, long enough to perfect the performance of being a wealthy man's wife, long enough to become very, very good at managing men who have what she needs. Charles Marshall dies in 1952. Heart disease, sudden, unexpected. Brooke is 50 years old, widowed. Her son Anthony is 28, graduated from Brown University. Beginning a career she will find disappointing. She has no significant wealth of her own. But she has learned. She has spent 33 years learning how money works, how to get it, how to keep it. And now she is ready for the final audition. Anthony watches all of this. Watches his mother marry for improvement. Watches her change his name to give him a better one. Watches her perform charm and devotion and wifely duty in exchange for access to wealth she did not earn. He learns that his mother values money more than she values him. He learns that he is evidence of her previous failures, not a source of pride. He learns to wait. This lesson will matter later, much later. When his mother is 100 years old and cannot remember his name, and he has power of attorney and access to her bank accounts, and a younger wife who wants what his mother is giving to strangers. But in 1952, he is just 28 years old, watching his mother prepare for her third marriage, watching her audition for the role that will make her famous. 1953, 11 months after Charles Marshall's death, Vincent Astor is 61 years old, twice divorced. His first wife left him. His second wife, Minnie, he left. Finally, after decades of mutual disappointment, he is one of the wealthiest men in America. His estate will be valued, when he dies, at $127,377,021. His accountants calculate it to the penny. He is also damaged in ways money cannot fix. His mother, Ava Astor, was cruel in ways that left lasting scars. She isolated him as punishment when he was a child alone in the dark until someone heard him crying. She told him he was stupid, clumsy, unworthy. She was beautiful and cold, and she taught him that he was fundamentally unlovable. His father, John Jacob Astor IV, drowned on the Titanic in 1912, gave up his lifeboat seat. Vincent was 20 years old. He inherited $87 million and the knowledge that his father died a hero while Vincent survived by not being there. Vincent has carried his father's pocket watch every day since. The watch stopped at 2:20 a.m., April 15th, 1912, the moment the Titanic slipped beneath the Atlantic, the moment his father drowned. Vincent slides the watch into his vest pocket every morning, every night. He removes it and places it on his dresser. The second hand has not moved in 41 years. This is the man Brooke Russell Marshall meets at a party in 1953. She is 51 years old, widowed once, divorced once, beautiful in a way that has not faded, charming in a way that seems effortless but is actually the result of 33 years of practice. She makes him laugh. This is not a small thing. Vincent Astor does not laugh easily. They marry October 8th, 1953. What Vincent gets? A woman who finds his dark moods interesting rather than tedious, who does not seem to want his money, she says, because she has learned that money does not buy happiness, who can navigate the world of museums and libraries and cultural institutions that he funds but does not understand, who can host dinners with intellectuals and artists and make Vincent seem less awkward by comparison. What Brooke gets? Everything. The marriage lasts 6 years. Vincent's health declines, heart problems, the weight of inheritance, the burden of the stopped watch. Brooke learns the foundation, learns the fortune, learns the institutions. She becomes friends with the people who run New York's cultural world. She positions herself carefully. Vincent writes his will during these years. When he dies, Brooke will inherit approximately $67 million in cash and securities. She will also become president of the Vincent Astor Foundation, which holds approximately $120 million in assets. The foundation's mission, written by Vincent to alleviate human misery. Brooke will spend the next 48 years figuring out what that means. February 3rd, 1959, Vincent Astor's Manhattan apartment. The heart attack comes in the afternoon. Vincent Astor collapses. The doctors arrive. They cannot save him. He is 67 years old. In his pocket, they find his father's gold watch. Still stopped, still carried, still trying to prove something that could never be proven. Vincent dies with the watch in his pocket. Brooke is now 57 years old. She has been married 3 times. She has one son who barely appears in her life. And she has $67 million, plus control of a foundation with $120 million in assets. She has everything she has been preparing for since she was a girl, watching her mother teach her how to move through rooms where other people owned everything. Now she owns everything. The question is, what will she do with it? Chapter 2, The Queen of New York, 1959. Brooke Astor is 57 years old and newly widowed. Vincent's will has been read. The numbers are staggering. $67 million to Brooke personally. Control of the Vincent Astor Foundation with approximately $120 million in assets. Real estate, art, furniture. The apartment at 778 Park Avenue. 15 rooms overlooking Central Park, filled with 18th century French furniture and Chinese porcelain and museum-quality paintings. She could retire, live quietly, spend the money on herself. No one would question it. She is a widow. She has earned this. Instead, she goes to work. The foundation's mission is written in Vincent's own words to alleviate human misery. It is broad, it is ambitious, it is unclear what it actually means. Brooke decides it means libraries, parks, cultural institutions, programs for children, things that serve many people, not just a few. Things that put her name on buildings where millions will see it. Things that make her famous for generosity rather than wealth. She's still performing. But now the performance has purpose. 1960 through 1997, 37 years of systematic giving. The foundation becomes one of New York's most important philanthropic institutions. Brooke becomes synonymous with New York philanthropy. The numbers are documented, specific, verifiable. New York Public Library receives over $50 million across 4 decades. In 1984, she gives $10 million for branch renovations. Branches in poor neighborhoods. Branches where children come after school because home is not safe or not quiet or not there. The money pays for new books, new computers, new programs. The branches stay open. In 1988, $5 million to the main branch at 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. The Brooke Astor Reading Room is dedicated. It still exists today, still operates, free to anyone who walks through the door. She visits the libraries. Photographers accompany her. Society pages cover every visit. She sits with children, asks them what they are reading. The cameras capture her smiling, engaged, seemingly delighted. Is it genuine? Is it performance? Perhaps both. Perhaps it does not matter if the result is the same. The libraries stay open. The programs continue. The children have books. 1981, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, $5 million for the Brooke Astor Court. A complete Chinese garden courtyard in the Asian art wing, built by Chinese craftsmen, authentic materials. Rock formations carefully placed according to Ming Dynasty garden principles. Water features, lattice windows, surrounding galleries displaying Chinese art from the museum's collection. The court opens to the public in 1981. Today, in 2025, 44 years later, it still operates. Hundreds of visitors walk through it daily. They sit in the peaceful space. They photograph the architecture. They read the plaques about Chinese garden design. Most have no idea who Brooke Astor was. They just experience the space. The beauty she paid for continues without her. The list continues. The Foundation's tax returns document every gift. Bronx Zoo, $4 million and more. Animal conservation, educational programs. Facilities, Carnegie Hall, $2 million and more. Restoration, programs, keeping the doors open, Colonial Williamsburg, $2 million and more. Historical preservation, the past made accessible. Wildlife Conservation Society, $10 million and more. Species protection, habitat conservation, work that continues decades after the checks were written. New York Botanical Garden, $3 million and more. Research, education, beauty that serves purpose. The total, calculated across 48 years, $195 million, given away. To institutions, to programs, to causes that will outlast her. An average of $4 million per year, every year, for nearly half a century. She visits every site she funds. This is documented. Photographers are always present. She walks through parks, sits in libraries, talks to program directors, asks questions. The society pages run photographs, Brooke Astor in a modest but elegant dress, talking to children, examining a restored building, dedicating a new program. Her famous quote. Repeated in every profile, money is like manure. It should be spread around. The dinner parties at 778 Park Avenue become legendary. Her little group writers, intellectuals, artists, museum directors. Henry Kissinger is a regular guest. Politicians come when they need philanthropic support. Cultural leaders come to pitch their institutions. Everyone comes because an invitation to Brooke Astor's table means you matter. She is performing. She has always been performing. But the performance has created something real. The buildings exist. The programs function. The institutions serve millions of people who will never know her name. Is this redemption? She married Vincent for his money. Everyone knows this, though no one says it directly. She did not earn the fortune. She inherited it through marriage, through being beautiful and charming, and making a damaged man laugh for 6 years. But she is spending it well, spending it on things that matter, spending it on things that will last. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that is the answer to the question Vincent carried in his pocket for 47 years. What is wealth for? Wealth is for building things that outlast you. Brooke seems to understand this. She decides the foundation will close after her death. No perpetual bureaucracy. She wants to see the results while she is alive. She wants to know the money was spent, not preserved, by the 1990s. The foundation is spending down its assets, giving away everything, making sure it all goes to work before she dies. The institutions receiving the money are grateful. They name rooms for her, buildings, wings, reading rooms, garden courts. Her name appears on plaques across New York City, permanent, visible, evidence that she existed, evidence that the money did something. But there is someone watching all of this, someone who sees the millions going to strangers, someone who believes he deserves more than he is getting. Her son, Anthony Marshall, the son in the shadow, Anthony Dryden Marshall, born May 30th, 1924. He is Brooke's only child, the son from her first marriage, the boy whose name was changed when he was 8 years old. the child who watched his mother marry for money twice before she finally got it right with Vincent Astor. He graduates from Brown University in the 1940s, respectable education. He serves in the United States Marine Corps, following his grandfather General Russell's tradition, respectable service. Then the State Department, the Diplomatic Corps. 1961, President John F. Kennedy appoints Anthony Marshall as ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. He is 37 years old. He serves until 1964. Later, ambassador to Kenya. Later still, ambassador to Madagascar. These are not insignificant positions. These are respectable postings. But they are not remarkable. They do not make headlines. They do not earn the kind of prominence that impresses his mother's social circle. After diplomacy, Anthony becomes a Broadway producer. Some modest successes, some failures. Nothing that makes him famous. Nothing that makes people say his name with recognition. He is always introduced as Brooke Astor's son, never as Anthony Marshall. Ambassador, never as Anthony Marshall. Producer, always as Brooke's son. His identity defined by her. His achievements overshadowed by her wealth and fame. He marries 3 times. First wife Elizabeth Cryan. They marry in 1947. They have twin sons Philip, born 1953, and Alexander, also born 1953. The marriage ends in divorce in 1960. Second wife Thelma Hugnell, his former secretary. They marry in 1962. This marriage lasts 30 years. They divorce in 1992, reportedly after Anthony's affair with the wife of an Episcopal priest in Maine. 1992. Anthony is 68 years old. He marries for the 3rd time Charlene Tyler, the former wife of Paul Gilbert, an Episcopal priest. She is younger, 23 years younger. Born in 1945, she is a former teacher. She has social ambitions. She wants to be part of society. She sees the Astor name. She sees the future inheritance. She tells Anthony he deserves more than he is getting. Brooke is in her 90s now. Still vital, still hosting dinner parties, still giving away millions. Anthony attends some of these dinners. Not many. His mother prefers the company of intellectuals, artists, writers, people she considers brilliant. Anthony is not, by implication, brilliant. In 1980, Brooke publishes her memoir, Footprints, an Autobiography. Over 500 pages, Anthony appears peripherally, brief mentions, dutiful but not warm, in 1993. She publishes Patchwork Child Early Memories, another memoir, over 200 pages. Anthony barely appears. He was not born until she was 22, so he is not part of the childhood stories. But the omission is striking. Over 700 pages of memoirs, her only child mentioned in passing, never central, never the focus of her pride or affection. Just there, present but not important. Friends of Brooke's notice, they tell biographers later. They say Brooke was disappointed in Anthony, that she felt he had not achieved enough given his advantages, that she preferred the company of people who stimulated her intellectually. And Anthony did not stimulate her. Philip Marshall. Anthony's son, Brooke's grandson, will later describe the dynamic differently. He will say his grandmother was emotionally distant from his father, more interested in her social circle than her family, that she treated Anthony as an obligation rather than a beloved son. Philip has a closer relationship with his grandmother than his father ever did. Philip and Brooke talk about art, books, culture. She engages with Philip in ways she never engaged with Anthony. This makes what happens later more complicated, more painful. But in the 1990s, the dynamic is simply this: Brooke is famous, celebrated, beloved by New York society. Anthony is respectable but not remarkable. He has spent his entire life being introduced as her son. He has spent decades watching her give millions to institutions while he receives a salary, an allowance, the promise of inheritance someday. His mother's will, written when she is still mentally competent, leaves approximately $3 million to Anthony, plus some personal property. The bulk of her estate, approximately $60 million, will go to the charitable institutions she has supported for decades. $3 million is generous. $3 million is more than most people will ever see. But it is not $60 million. It is not the fortune. It is not the recognition that he is her son. Her only child, the person who should matter most. Anthony is in his 70s now. Charlene is in her 50s. They watch Brooke give money away. They watch her visit libraries. They watch her name go on buildings. They watch her become more famous, more celebrated. While Anthony remains Brooke Astor's son, never his own person, always defined by her. How long can you watch someone give away what you believe should be yours? Charlene tells Anthony he deserves more. She tells him his mother should provide for him properly. She tells him they should have the money. Not strangers, not institutions, not people who never cared about Brooke as family. And then Brooke's mind begins to fail, and Anthony begins to see opportunity. Chapter 3. The Decline. 2000. Brooke Astor turns 98 years old. She still hosts dinners, still visits the institutions she funds, still remembers names, faces, stories accumulated over decades of social performance. But friends begin to notice small changes. She repeats herself. She forgets which story she told at which dinner. She confuses dates. She asks the same question twice in the same conversation. Nothing alarming, just age, just the normal slowing that comes when you have lived nearly a century. 2001. 99 years old. The repetition increases. The confusion deepens. She sometimes forgets where she is, sometimes cannot remember what day it is. Her social calendar begins to thin. Fewer dinner parties, fewer public appearances, fewer site visits to the institutions she funds. 2002, March 30th. Brooke Astor turns 100 years old. The diagnosis comes shortly after Alzheimer's disease. It is not mild. It is not early stage. By the time doctors document it formally, the disease has already progressed significantly. Brooke is confused about time, place, identity. She sometimes cannot recognize people she has known for decades. She sometimes cannot remember her own address. The medical records are precise, clinical. They document the decline in language that is detached from the human reality of what is happening. Cognitive impairment, memory loss, disorientation, inability to manage activities of daily living, diminished capacity for decision-making. What this means in practice. Brooke Astor can no longer understand financial documents, can no longer make informed decisions about her estate, can no longer remember what she wanted to happen to her money when she died. 2003. I'm 101 years old. The Alzheimer's advances rapidly. Medical examinations document severe cognitive decline. Multiple physicians evaluate her. Their conclusions are consistent. Brooke Astor lacks the mental capacity to execute legal documents, manage her affairs, or understand the consequences of financial decisions. She sometimes recognizes Anthony, sometimes does not. Sometimes thinks he is Charles Marshall, her second husband. Sometimes thinks he is Vincent. Sometimes thinks he is a stranger in her home. She can still sign her name. This is important. This matters. Because a signature is all that is legally required to change a will. Understanding what you are signing is not required if no one asks whether you understand. 2004, 102 years old. Multiple physicians declare her mentally incompetent. The medical documentation is extensive. Brain scans, cognitive tests, behavioral assessments. All reach the same conclusion: Brooke Astor cannot understand complex information, cannot retain new information, cannot make decisions about her own welfare. And this is the year everything happens. The staff at 778 Park Avenue watch the transformation. They have worked for Brooke for years, some for decades. They know what she was. They see what she is becoming. Minette Christie has been Brooke's social secretary since the 1970s. 30 years of managing invitations, coordinating events, maintaining the social calendar that defined Brooke's life. She watches the calendar empty, watches friends being told Mrs. Astor is not receiving visitors, watches Anthony take control of access to his mother, Minette receives new instructions from Anthony: reduce expenses, cut staff hours, cancel subscriptions, no more elaborate dinner parties, no more fresh flowers delivered weekly, no more unnecessary spending. Mrs. Astor is old now, Anthony says. She does not need these things anymore. Chris Ellie manages Brooke's properties. He has worked for the Astor estate for years, maintaining the apartment, overseeing repairs, managing the complex infrastructure of maintaining a 15-room Park Avenue residence. He receives instructions from Anthony: sell the main property, defer maintenance on the apartment, reduce all non-essential spending. Mrs. Astor will not be using the main house anymore, Anthony says. She does not even remember she owns it. Better to sell it now and manage the money properly. The nursing staff is in perhaps the most painful position. They have cared for Mrs. Astor for years. They know what proper care looks like. They see what is happening now. They see Brooke lying in bed, confused, frightened sometimes, asking where Vincent is, saying she needs to get ready for a dinner party, trying to remember whether she visited the library yet this week. They see the sheets that are not changed as frequently as they should be, the meals that are simpler, smaller, cheaper than they were, the medications that are administered irregularly because the nursing staff has been reduced and the remaining caregivers are stretched too thin. They see Anthony's anger when they ask questions, when they suggest Brooke needs better care, when they mention that Mrs. Astor seems uncomfortable, seems hungry, seems to be developing bed sores from lying in the same position too long. Mrs. Astor is fine, Anthony says. Her care is adequate. The spending must be controlled. There is no money for unnecessary expenses. This is demonstrably false. Brooke's estate is worth between $130 million and $200 million, depending on how assets are valued. There is money. There is enormous money. There is more money than any reasonable care could possibly cost. But Anthony is reducing his mother's care budget by 95%, while her assets sit in bank accounts earning interest. The staff members do not know what to do. They are employees. Anthony has power of attorney. He has legal authority to make decisions about his mother's care and finances. They can object, but they can be fired. They can speak up, but they can be replaced with cheaper workers who will not ask questions. They need their jobs. They have mortgages. They have families. They watch what is happening and they do not know how to stop it without destroying their own lives. So they watch. They document in their own minds. They remember. And later, when the courts intervene, when the prosecutors ask questions, they will testify. But right now, in 2003 and 2004, they watch Brooke Astor deteriorate in a 15-room apartment filled with museum-quality art, while her son reduces her care budget to save money she does not need to save. And they cannot stop it. The codicils. Brooke Astor's will was executed years earlier, when her mind was still sharp, when she could still remember who she was and what she wanted. The will is clear, specific, deliberate. The bulk of her estate, approximately $60 million, will go to charitable institutions: the New York Public Library, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the organizations she supported for 48 years, the institutions that bear her name, the programs she funded, the work she believed in. Her son Anthony will receive approximately $3 million, plus personal property, family heirlooms, items of sentimental value. $3 million is generous. $3 million is more than adequate. $3 million is what Brooke decided, when she was competent, was appropriate for her son. It is not $60 million. It is not the fortune. It is not the bulk of the estate. This is what she wanted. This is what she decided when she could still decide. March 2003. Brooke is 101 years old. She has Alzheimer's disease. Her cognitive decline is documented, but she is not yet declared legally incompetent. A codicil is added to her will. A codicil is a legal amendment, a change to existing terms without rewriting the entire document. This first codicil modestly increases Anthony's inheritance. Not dramatically. Not enough to alarm anyone, just a small adjustment. It is a test, to see if it can be done, to see if anyone objects. to see if a woman with Alzheimer's can still sign legal documents if someone puts a pen in her hand and tells her to sign. No one objects. The codicil is executed. It is legal. January 2004. Brooke is 102 years old. She has advanced Alzheimer's disease. Multiple physicians have now documented that she lacks capacity. She cannot understand complex information, cannot remember conversations, cannot make informed decisions about anything. A second codicil is prepared. This codicil changes everything. The bulk of her estate, approximately $60 million, will now go to Anthony Marshall, instead of to charitable institutions. The main property will remain with Anthony rather than being sold for charity. $2 million will be designated for Charlene's theater projects. The charitable institutions that Brooke supported for 48 years will receive drastically reduced bequests. The charitable institutions that Brooke supported for 48 years will receive drastically reduced bequests. The libraries, the museums, the parks, they will get far less than she originally intended. Anthony will get almost everything. The codicil is prepared by Francis X. Morrissey, Jr., an attorney with a long association with Anthony Marshall. Morrissey drafts the language. Morrissey brings the document to 778 Park Avenue. Morrissey witnesses Brooke's signature. Morrissey has an ethical duty as an attorney. He must ensure his client has the mental capacity to understand what she is signing. He must ensure she is not being coerced or unduly influenced. He must ensure the document reflects her actual wishes, not someone else's wishes. The signing takes place in the apartment. Witnesses are present, legally required for will execution. Anthony is present. Brooke is brought out. She sits. Someone places the document in front of her. The witnesses will later testify about what they saw. According to their testimony, Brooke appeared confused, disoriented. She could not read the document. Her vision was poor, her comprehension worse. She did not ask questions about what the document said. She did not request an explanation. She simply sat there while someone told her to sign. Someone may have guided her hand. The forensic analysis later will suggest this. The signature on the 2004 codicil is inconsistent with Brooke's known handwriting from the same time period. The pressure points are wrong. The flow is wrong. It looks like someone else formed the letters while Brooke held the pen. Or perhaps she signed it herself, in a moment of confusion. Not understanding what she was doing, not knowing what the document said, not remembering. 5 minutes later, that she had signed anything at all. No one explains the document to her. No one asks if she understands. No one provides her with independent counsel, a lawyer whose job is to protect her interests. Not Anthony's interests. She signs, or someone guides her hand to sign, or someone forges her signature outright. The forensic experts will debate this at trial, but the result is the same. Her signature appears on a document that redirects $60 million from charities to her son. The document she signed when she was competent said, "Give most of my money to the institutions I supported all my life." The document signed in 2004 says, "Give most of my money to Anthony." These two instructions cannot both reflect her true wishes. One of them is a lie. 2002, 2 years before the codicil, before the courts intervened, before anyone knew what was happening. Brooke Astor owns a painting. Flags, 5th Avenue by Child Hassam, painted in 1917 during the First World War. 5th Avenue decorated with Allied flags. Vibrant, colorful, alive. One of Hassam's most valuable works, worth $10 million or more. The painting hangs prominently in her Park Avenue apartment. She has promised it to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She has told friends for years this will go to the Met after I die. The public will see it. Children will stand in front of it. The painting will serve everyone, not just me. Anthony tells his mother she is running out of money. This is false. She has over $130 million. But he tells her we need to sell assets. We need cash. The painting must be sold. Brooke, confused, her mind already declining, agrees, or thinks she agrees, or signs something she does not understand. The painting is sold for $10 million. Anthony arranges the sale. Anthony takes a $2 million commission, 20%, $2 million for selling his mother's beloved painting, the painting she promised to the Met, the painting the public will never see. Lord William Astor, Brooke's nephew, visits shortly after. He notices immediately. The wall is bare. "Brooke, what happened to the Hassam?" he asks. "Oh," she says, confused. "Tony sold it for me. He said I needed the money." She did not need the money. She had millions. But the painting is gone, and Anthony is $2 million richer. The Metropolitan Museum will never receive the painting. The location of the painting today is unknown. It disappeared into a private collection. The public will never see it. This happens in 2002, 2 years before the codicil that will redirect $60 million. 2 years before the care budget is slashed. 2 years before Brooke lies on unchanged sheets. It is a preview, a test, to see if Anthony can take what he wants, to see if anyone will stop him. No one stops him. The painting is gone. And so Anthony learns he can take more. 2004. The care budget is reduced. A set of clean sheets costs approximately $200. Anthony took $2 million from the painting sale. The sheets are not changed because Anthony has reduced the household budget, because spending money on his mother's comfort is, in his view, wasteful, because she will not remember whether the sheets were changed anyway. $2 million in commission, $200 for clean sheets. This is not metaphor. This is the physical reality of what is happening at 778 Park Avenue. Francis Morrissey knows. He is a lawyer. He understands capacity. He understands undue influence. He understands that what he is doing is, at minimum, ethically questionable. At maximum, criminal. He does it anyway. He will later be convicted. He will be disbarred. He will serve prison time. But in 2004, he prepares the document, witnesses the signature, and files the codicil with the court. And Brooke Astor, who gave away $195 million to help strangers, has just signed away $60 million to benefit the son she never particularly liked. She will not remember signing it. She will never know it happened, and for the next 2 years, she will live in conditions that make the codicil's existence even more obscene. The squalor. 2004 through 2006, 778 Park Avenue. The apartment has 15 rooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, 18th century French furniture, Chinese porcelain in display cases, paintings worth millions. Rooms that have hosted intellectuals, artists, politicians, cultural leaders. Rooms where history was made over dinner. In one of these rooms, Brooke Astor lies in a bed with soiled sheets. This is documented. This is not exaggeration. The staff members who work in the apartment will testify under oath. The prosecutors will present evidence. The medical professionals who eventually examine Brooke will document the physical signs of neglect. The sheets are not changed regularly. Sometimes they go days without being changed. Advanced Alzheimer's left Brooke completely dependent on caregivers for basic needs. The sheets required frequent changing. They were not changed frequently. The mattress beneath showed signs of long neglect. The room showed clear evidence of inadequate care. Clean linens are available. The closets at 778 Park Avenue contain expensive sheets, high thread count, luxury linens. But they are not being used because using them requires staff time and laundry costs, and Anthony has reduced the budget. The bed itself is damaged. Brooke's dachshunds, her beloved dogs, have chewed the mattress. The dogs are not being properly cared for either. They are anxious, confused by the changes in the household. They damage furniture. They are not walked regularly. They live in the same neglected conditions as Brooke. The room temperature is poorly regulated. The heating and air conditioning are not properly maintained because maintenance costs money. Brooke is sometimes too hot, sometimes too cold. She cannot adjust the temperature herself. She cannot communicate her discomfort clearly because of the Alzheimer's. The curtains in her room are torn. The furniture is damaged. These things could be repaired. The estate has millions of dollars available, but repairs are deferred because Anthony considers them unnecessary expenses. The medical care deteriorates. Brooke previously had access to top physicians, specialists, regular checkups, high-quality medications under Anthony's management. Doctor visits are reduced. Generic medications replace brand-name prescriptions. Non-emergency treatments are deferred. Bed sores develop. These are pressure ulcers that form when someone lies in the same position too long without being moved. They are painful. They can become infected. They are a sign of inadequate care. Brooke loses weight. The food budget has been reduced. The private chef has been dismissed. Meals are simpler, smaller, cheaper. Nutrition suffers. Her body weakens. Dehydration is documented in medical records. She's not drinking enough water because staff is not available to help her drink regularly. Dehydration causes confusion, weakness, urinary tract infections. It makes the Alzheimer's symptoms worse. The nursing staff has been cut. Previously, Brooke had multiple registered nurses providing 24-hour skilled care. Under Anthony's management, the RNs are replaced with cheaper home health aides. Fewer of them, less training, stretched across longer shifts. They do their best, but they cannot provide the level of care Brooke needs. The budget numbers are documented in the forensic accounting that will be presented at trial before Anthony took control. Brooke's annual personal spending was approximately $3 to $5 million. This covered full household staff, medical care, apartment maintenance, food, linens, personal items, social activities, everything needed to maintain a 15-room Park Avenue apartment and care for an elderly woman properly. Under Anthony's management, the budget is reduced to approximately $50,000 to $100,000 annually. This is a 95% reduction. Brooke's estate is worth between $130 million and $200 million. The money exists. The accounts are full. But Anthony is spending less than 0.1% of the estate value on his mother's care. Where does the money go instead? Anthony and Charlene's spending increases dramatically during this same period. Yacht charters. Multiple luxury yacht rentals documented in credit card statements. $50,000 to $100,000 each. Anthony and Charlene vacation on yachts while Brooke lies on soiled sheets. First-class international travel. Flights to Europe. Hotels at the Four Seasons. The Ritz-Carlton. Expensive restaurants. Luxury shopping. Entertainment. Country club memberships. Exclusive clubs with annual dues of $50,000 or more. Charlene's theater projects. Approximately $2 million invested in theatrical productions that are not commercially successful. Money from Brooke's estate used to fund Charlene's social and professional ambitions. Art purchases, jewelry, furnishings for their own homes, all documented in financial records. All paid for while Brooke's care budget is slashed. The main property, Cove End, Northeast Harbor, Brooke's beloved summer estate. The place where she spent happy months away from the city. The property she intended to leave to a charitable institution. Anthony transfers ownership to himself in 2003, then to his wife Charlene. Brooke is mentally incompetent. She cannot consent. She cannot understand what is being transferred or why. She sometimes does not remember she owns property in Maine. The property worth millions does not benefit Brooke's care. It becomes Charlene's asset. The transfer enables the increased spending on yachts, travel, theater projects. The timeline is damning. Everything builds over time. 2002, the Hassam painting is sold. Anthony takes $2 million. 2003, the main property is transferred to Charlene. January 2004, the codicil is signed. Redirecting $60 million to Anthony. 2004, Brooke's care budget is reduced by 95%. 2004, Anthony and Charlene's spending increases dramatically. 2004, the year when Brooke's mind is gone enough that she cannot resist, cannot understand, cannot remember, cannot fight back. The year when her son sees opportunity. The staff members watch this happen. They see the conditions, they see the spending, they see the cruelty of it, the casual neglect of a woman who gave away $195 million to help strangers, while her own son will not spend $200 to change her sheets. But they do not report it. Not yet. They are afraid of losing their jobs. afraid of retaliation, afraid they will not be believed if they accuse Anthony Marshall, ambassador. Broadway producer, son of Brooke Astor of elder abuse. So they stay silent, and Brooke continues to suffer from preventable neglect while $10 million worth of art hangs on the wall one room away. And the question that will be asked at trial, the question that will define this entire case: how long did this go on before someone finally stopped it? The answer: too long. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. The Whistleblower, July 24th, 2006. Philip Marshall walks into a courthouse in Manhattan and files a petition that will destroy his family. He is 58 years old, son of Anthony Marshall, grandson of Brooke Astor, a professor, a former reporter for The New Yorker, a man who has spent his life building his own identity separate from his family's wealth and fame. He files a petition seeking guardianship of his grandmother. The petition alleges that his father, Anthony Marshall, has neglected Brooke's care, that she is living in deplorable conditions, that financial exploitation has occurred, that Anthony is unfit to serve as her guardian or conservator. Philip knows what this petition will do. He knows his father will never forgive him. He knows the family will fracture permanently. He knows the media will turn this into spectacle. He knows he may lose any inheritance from his father. He knows he is choosing his grandmother over his father. He files anyway. The petition is specific, clinical. It describes conditions at 778 Park Avenue. It describes the reduction in care. It describes financial irregularities. It requests immediate court intervention to protect Brooke from further harm. The next day, the New York Times runs the story. Front page. Brooke Astor's grandson says she is being mistreated. The media explosion is immediate. Brooke Astor, beloved philanthropist, icon of New York society. 104 years old, reportedly living in squalor while her son controls a $130 million estate. The tabloids feast on it. The broadsheets cover it seriously. Society pages are in turmoil. Every institution she funded expresses concern. Everyone who knew her or knew of her is horrified. Annette de la Renta reads the article. She is the widow of fashion designer Oscar de la Renta. She has been a close friend of Brooke's for many years, part of Brooke's inner circle. She has been worried about Brooke's welfare for some time, but did not know how bad it had become. Annette calls Philip. She offers support. She offers testimony. She offers to help in any way possible. Together, Philip Marshall and Annette de la Renta provide evidence to the court. They describe what they have witnessed, the deteriorating conditions, the reduced access to Brooke, Anthony's control over every aspect of his mother's life, the financial irregularities they suspect but cannot yet prove. August 2006. The court acts. A judge appoints Annette de la Renta as Brooke Astor's guardian. Anthony Marshall is removed from control. All financial decisions now require court approval. An independent accounting is ordered. Medical evaluations are ordered. Investigators begin examining the estate's financial records. The changes are immediate, within days. Brooke is moved to a clean room with fresh linens. The soiled sheets are removed. The damaged mattress is replaced. The apartment is cleaned thoroughly. Repairs are made. The temperature is properly regulated. Medical professionals examine Brooke. They document her condition. Bed sores, malnutrition, dehydration, signs of prolonged neglect, but also capacity for improvement with proper care. 24-hour nursing is implemented. Registered nurses, trained professionals, adequate staffing. Proper medical care is restored. Medications are administered correctly. Doctor visits are scheduled. Specialists are consulted. Nutritious meals are prepared. Brooke is encouraged to eat. She is helped to drink water regularly. Her weight begins to stabilize. The dogs are properly cared for. Fed regularly, walked, given attention. The animals calm down. Within weeks, Brooke's physical condition improves measurably. She gains weight. The bed sores heal. Her skin color improves. Her vital signs stabilize. She still has advanced Alzheimer's disease. Her mind does not return. She does not suddenly remember who she is or what happened to her. The cognitive decline is irreversible. But her body recovers from the neglect. She is clean, she is comfortable, she is properly cared for. She has dignity again. The staff members who remained throughout the ordeal notice the difference. The apartment feels different. The atmosphere of neglect and despair lifts. Brooke is still confused, still lost in her own mind, but she is no longer suffering from preventable physical neglect. Anthony Marshall is barred from making decisions about his mother's care. He can visit, but only under supervision. He no longer controls her money. He no longer controls access to her. The investigation into financial irregularities continues. Forensic accountants examine bank records. They trace money flows. They document spending patterns. They analyze the codicils. They review real estate transactions. They build a case. The prosecutors are interested, very interested. But Brooke will not live to see the trial. August 13th, 2007, 778 Park Avenue. Brooke Astor dies at 105 years old. She dies in her apartment, under the guardianship of Annette de la Renta, not her son. She dies clean, comfortable, properly cared for. She dies with dignity restored, but she dies without knowing whether justice will be served, without knowing whether her son will be held accountable, without knowing whether the courts will rule that what happened to her was criminal. Her funeral is held at St. Thomas Church on Fifth Avenue. Hundreds attend. Society leaders, cultural figures, representatives from every institution she funded, politicians, museum directors, library administrators, people whose lives were touched by her philanthropy. Anthony Marshall attends his mother's funeral. He sits in the front row. He does not speak. The eulogies praise Brooke's generosity, her vision, her impact on New York City. No one mentions the last years. No one mentions the conditions she lived in. No one mentions the codicils or the missing money or the investigations. Everyone knows. No one says it at the funeral. Brooke is buried at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in Westchester County, next to Vincent Astor, 2 gravestones, side by side. Vincent's stone is blank except for his name and dates. Brooke's stone says, "I had a wonderful life." She chose those words in 1998, 9 years before she died, before the Alzheimer's, before her son proved what he was willing to do, before the courts had to intervene, before the world learned what happened in the apartment overlooking Central Park. Did she have a wonderful life? 103 years were perhaps wonderful. The last 2 were not. But the words are carved in stone, permanent. Her final statement to the world, chosen when she could still choose, and now the prosecutors must decide whether to bring criminal charges against her son. The investigation and trial. November 2007. Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Robert Morgenthau decides to prosecute. Morgenthau is 86 years old. He has served as Manhattan District Attorney for 35 years. He is legendary. He prosecuted organized crime figures. He prosecuted white-collar criminals. He prosecuted some of the most high-profile cases in New York history. He is elderly himself. He understands what can happen to elderly people. He understands vulnerability. He understands that if Brooke Astor, one of the wealthiest, most famous women in New York, can be exploited by her own son, then no elderly person is truly safe. He brings charges. November 26th, 2007. Anthony Dryden Marshall is indicted on 16 counts: grand larceny in the first degree, conspiracy in the second degree, forgery in the second degree, possession of stolen property in the first degree. Francis X. Morrissey, Jr., the attorney who prepared the codicils, is also indicted. Conspiracy, forgery, fraud, the alleged theft approximately $60 to $80 million, stolen through fraudulent codicils, through unauthorized asset sales, through misappropriation of funds meant for Brooke's care. Anthony Marshall is 83 years old when indicted. His health is declining. He has heart problems. He moves slowly. He looks elderly and frail, but he is charged with systematically stealing from his mother while she lay helpless with Alzheimer's disease. The trial date is set for March 2009, 16 months after Brooke's death, 16 months for the legal machinery to prepare. March 2009. Supreme Court of New York County, Judge A. Kirk Bartley, Jr. presiding. The trial begins. It will last approximately 6 months, one of the longest white-collar criminal trials in New York history. The courtroom is packed every day. Media coverage is constant. The tabloids run daily updates. The serious papers analyze the legal arguments. Anthony Marshall sits at the defense table, 85 years old now, represented by expensive attorneys. His wife Charlene sits behind him in the gallery. Every day, showing support, Philip Marshall attends the trial. He sits on the opposite side of the courtroom from his father. They do not speak. They do not look at each other. The family is fractured completely. The prosecution calls dozens of witnesses. The case they build is methodical, precise, devastating. Dr. Howard Phillott takes the stand, geriatric psychiatrist, expert in Alzheimer's disease. He has reviewed Brooke's medical records. He has examined the timeline of her cognitive decline. His testimony is clear by 2004. Brooke Astor had advanced Alzheimer's disease. She lacked the mental capacity to execute the codicils. She could not understand the nature and consequences of signing changes to her will. She could not have made informed decisions about redirecting $60 million. The defense cross-examines. They suggest Brooke had good days when her mind was clearer. They suggest the diagnosis was not as severe as the prosecution claims. Dr. Phillott does not waver. The medical evidence is clear. Brooke lacked capacity. Handwriting experts testify. They have analyzed the signatures on the 2004 codicil. They compare them to Brooke's known signatures from the same time period. They point out inconsistencies, pressure points that are wrong, letter formations that do not match her natural handwriting. Their conclusion: the signature was either forged outright or Brooke's hand was guided by someone else. The defense brings their own handwriting experts. They challenge the analysis. They argue the variations are consistent with age and illness affecting motor control. The jury listens to both sides. They examine the signatures themselves. They will have to decide which experts to believe. The nursing staff testifies. Their testimony is perhaps the most emotionally difficult to hear. These are professionals who cared for Brooke Astor for years. They watched her deteriorate under conditions they knew were inadequate. They described the conditions at 778 Park Avenue, the soiled sheets that were not changed regularly, the reduced meals, the inadequate medical care, the bed sores, the neglect. They described conversations with Anthony, his instructions to minimize spending, his anger when they questioned the care decisions, his insistence that his mother did not need expensive care because she would not remember it anyway. The defense tries to undermine their credibility. They suggest the staff is exaggerating. They point out that staff members might have financial motivations. They might benefit if proper care is restored and they get their hours back. But their testimony is detailed, specific, corroborated by each other and by medical professionals. The jury sees caregivers who were in an impossible position watching a woman suffer while her son controlled every decision. Chris Ely testifies about the main property sale, about Anthony's instructions to sell the property and how the proceeds were used, about the reduction in maintenance spending on the apartment, about financial transactions that seemed irregular. Anthony Dryden, Marshall, guilty on 14 of 16 counts, guilty of grand larceny in the first degree, guilty of conspiracy, guilty of forgery, guilty of multiple counts of fraud and theft, acquitted on 2 counts, the larceny charge related to the Child Hassam painting sale, and 1 count of falsifying business records. The jury found that while the painting sale was questionable, the prosecution did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that it was criminal theft. Anthony had power of attorney. The sale had legal paperwork. The commission, while large, was arguably within his authority. But on the codicils on the systematic exploitation of his mother's Alzheimer's to redirect $60 million, the jury is clear. Guilty. Witnesses testify about the Child Hassam painting, the beloved artwork Brooke promised to the Metropolitan Museum, sold in 2002 for $10 million. Anthony took a $2 million commission. Lord William Astor testifies he saw the empty wall. Brooke said, "Tony sold it. He said I needed the money." But she did not need money. She had $130 million. The painting was sold to enrich Anthony, not to help Brooke. The Met will never receive the painting Brooke promised them. Its location today is unknown. The prosecution argues this was theft. Anthony had power of attorney, but he was required to act in his mother's interest, not his own. Taking a $2 million commission while telling his mother she was broke, this is fraud. The defense argues Anthony had legal authority. The power of attorney allowed him to manage her assets. The commission was standard. Brooke approved the sale. The jury will have to decide. Did Anthony steal the painting, or did he manage it properly? Minette Christie testifies about Brooke's declining mental state, about Anthony's increasing control, about friends being turned away, about the social calendar that used to define Brooke's life disappearing entirely. Staff members testify about the conditions, about the budget cuts, about being told to do more with less, about watching Mrs. Astor deteriorate. Forensic accountants present their analysis. They have traced every dollar. They show the jury detailed charts and timelines. Brooke's spending before Anthony took control, $3 to $5 million annually. Brooke's spending under Anthony's control, $50,000 to $100,000 annually. Anthony and Charlene's spending during the same period dramatically increased. Yachts, travel, theater projects, country clubs, luxury purchases. The numbers tell a story. While Brooke's care budget was slashed by 95%, her son and his wife were spending lavishly. While she lay on soiled sheets, they chartered yachts. While she developed bed sores from inadequate care, they stayed at 5-star hotels in Europe. The prosecution presents the codicils themselves. The jury sees the documents. They see Brooke's signature, or what is claimed to be her signature. They see the changes, $60 million redirected from charities to Anthony, $10 million painting redirected to Anthony, $2 million to Charlene's theater projects. They see Francis Morrissey's name as the attorney who prepared the documents. Morrissey sits at a separate defense table. His own trial is proceeding simultaneously. The prosecution argues Morrissey knew Brooke lacked capacity. He prepared the codicils anyway, witnessed her signature knowing she did not understand what she was signing, violated his ethical duties as an attorney, conspired with Anthony to defraud the estate. The defense presents their case. Anthony had power of attorney. They argue he had legal authority to manage his mother's affairs. The spending reductions were prudent financial management, not neglect. Brooke's care was adequate for someone with advanced Alzheimer's. The codicils reflected Brooke's true wishes. She wanted to provide for her son, not give everything to institutions. Some medical experts disagree on the exact timing of when she lost capacity. The changes to the will were Brooke's decision, not Anthony's manipulation. The defense calls their own medical experts. They suggest that Alzheimer's progression varies, that Brooke might have had lucid moments, that the capacity determination is not as clear-cut as the prosecution claims. The defense suggests that the charities are the real villains here, greedy institutions trying to take money that should have gone to family. They paint Anthony as a dutiful son, trying to manage his difficult mother's affairs while fighting off institutions that wanted to drain the estate. Charlene Marshall testifies in her husband's defense. She says Anthony was stressed, that managing his mother's care was overwhelming, that they did the best they could, that Brooke was difficult, demanding, ungrateful, that Anthony deserved to inherit more after dealing with her for so many years. Her testimony does not help. The jury sees a younger wife defending her husband's theft. They see someone who benefited directly from the $2 million designated for her theater projects. They see someone with motive. The prosecution's closing argument is powerful. They summarize 6 months of testimony. They show the jury the timeline 2004, when everything happened, the codicil signed, the property sold, the care budget slashed, the son's spending increased, all in the same year. All when Brooke's mind was gone. They remind the jury of the painting. Flags, 5th Avenue, worth $10 million. Sold in 2002. Anthony took $2 million. Then, 2 years later, he refused to spend $200 on clean sheets for his mother, $2 million for himself, $200 for her care too expensive. They remind the jury this is who Anthony Marshall is. They ask the jury, is this how you treat your mother? Is this what a dutiful son does? The defense's closing argument emphasizes Anthony's age, his service as an ambassador, his attempts to manage a difficult situation. They argue the prosecution has criminalized family decisions that should remain private. They argue that Anthony made mistakes but did not commit crimes. October 8, 2009. After 6 months of trial, the jury begins deliberations. They deliberate for several days, reviewing evidence, debating, trying to determine was this criminal theft or family dysfunction, was this elder abuse or complicated family dynamics. October 8, 2009. The verdict: Anthony Dryden Marshall guilty on 14 of 16 counts. Guilty of grand larceny in the first degree. Guilty of conspiracy. Guilty of forgery. Guilty of multiple count of fraud and theft. Acquitted on 2 minor technical counts, but guilty on all major charges. Francis X. Morrissey, Jr. Guilty on conspiracy charges. The courtroom is silent when the verdict is read. Then reporters rush out to file stories. Philip Marshall sits quietly, showing no emotion. He has testified against his father. The jury believed him. Justice has been served. But his father is now a convicted felon. The family is destroyed. Charlene Marshall cries. Anthony shows no emotion. He is 85 years old. He has just been convicted of stealing from his mother. December 21st, 2009. Sentencing. Judge Bartley addresses the court. He notes the severity of the crimes. The breach of trust, a son exploiting his own mother. The vulnerability of the victim, a woman with Alzheimer's who could not defend herself. The systematic nature of the theft. This was not one impulsive act, but years of exploitation. But he also notes Anthony's age and declining health. These are mitigating factors. The sentence: 1 to 3 years in prison. Fines, restitution, forfeiture of illegally obtained assets. Anthony will appeal. He will remain free on bail while the appeals process proceeds. But he has been convicted. He has been sentenced. The jury has said what you did was criminal. Francis Morrissey receives a lesser sentence as an accomplice. He will also appeal. But his legal career is over. Disbarment proceedings have already begun. The question asked at the beginning of the trial has been answered. Can you give away everything and still end up with nothing? Brooke Astor gave away $195 million. And in the end, she had nothing. Not even clean sheets. Not even her son's love. Not even dignity. Until the courts forced it. But the institutions she funded still stand. The libraries still open. The museums still display art. The work continues. And her son, who stole $60 million, will spend less than 2 months in prison. Justice, it turns out, is complicated. The appeals and the end. 2010 through 2013. The legal process continues. Anthony Marshall files appeals immediately. His attorneys argue prosecutorial misconduct. They challenge jury instructions. They argue evidence was improperly admitted. They cite his age, 85 at conviction, 86 now, and his declining health as reasons the conviction should be overturned. He remains free on bail. 3.5 years will pass between his conviction in December 2009 and his eventual imprisonment. 3.5 years of freedom while appealing a conviction for stealing from his mother. The civil settlements happen during this period. Anthony agrees to forfeit approximately $14.5 million. The money will be returned to the charitable institutions Brooke designated in her original will. The New York Public Library, the Metropolitan Museum, the organizations she actually wanted to support. Charlene Marshall reaches a separate civil settlement. She returns some assets and funds. She is not criminally charged, but is held civilly liable. The exact amount of her settlement is not fully disclosed, but she gives back some of what she gained. The money goes where it should have gone originally, to the libraries, to the museums, to the programs. But it arrives years late, and it is only a fraction of what was stolen. March 2013. The Appellate Division issues its ruling. Some of Anthony's convictions are overturned on technical grounds, legal technicalities about jury instructions and evidence admissibility. But the major convictions are upheld. Grand larceny, conspiracy, the core fraud charges stand. The sentence is modified slightly. But prison time remains. Anthony has exhausted most of his appeals. He will have to report to prison. June 21st, 2013. Anthony Dryden Marshall reports to prison. He is 89 years old. Nearly 4 years after conviction, he is sent to a minimum security facility. His health is poor heart problems. Parkinson's disease beginning to show symptoms. He serves approximately 8 weeks. Then he is released on medical parole. His health has deteriorated significantly. He has heart disease. Parkinson's disease is progressing. The prison medical staff determines he requires care that cannot be provided in a correctional facility. 8 weeks. That is how much prison time Anthony Marshall serves for stealing $60 million from his mother. He is placed in a supervised medical facility. He will die there. November 30th, 2014. Anthony Dryden Marshall dies at age 90. The official cause of death: complications from Parkinson's disease. He has been out of prison for approximately 1 year. He never admits guilt, never apologizes. Maintains until his death that he did nothing wrong, that he was a dutiful son managing his difficult mother's affairs, that the prosecution was unjust, that the jury was wrong. His obituaries tell a different story. The New York Times headline: Anthony D. Marshall, 90, dies. Brooke Astor's son went to prison for plundering her fortune. Not Anthony Marshall, former ambassador. Not Anthony Marshall, Broadway producer. Not Anthony Marshall, Brown University graduate who served his country. His entire life reduced to one fact: he stole from his mother. This is his legacy. This is what his name will mean to history. Every obituary defines him by his crime. Every article about him mentions the trial first, his accomplishments, if at all, as afterthoughts. He spent 90 years on earth. 89 of those years, he was Anthony Marshall, person with his own identity. But the last year and all the years remembered afterward, he is only Brooke Astor's son who stole her fortune. Charlene survives him. She fades from public view after his death. No interviews, no statements. She lives quietly with whatever money remained after the settlements and legal fees. She does not attend public events. She does not seek attention. She becomes invisible. Philip Marshall has spoken publicly about his decision. He founded Beyond Brooke, an organization devoted to elder justice advocacy. He has given interviews, delivered keynote speeches, and dedicated his career to raising awareness about elder abuse and financial exploitation. But no amount of explaining changes the fact he destroyed his father to save his grandmother. His father never forgave him. They were estranged from the moment Philip filed the guardianship petition until the day Anthony died. Philip did the right thing. He stopped the abuse. He protected his grandmother. He sought justice. But the cost was his father. He saved a grandmother who could not remember him. He testified against a father who never forgot. There are no winners in this story. The institutions still work. 2025, 20 years after Brooke Astor's mind began to fail. 18 years after she died. The Brooke Astor Reading Room at the New York Public Library opens at 9 a.m., the main branch at 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. The room is elegant, quiet, filled with researchers, students, people who need a place to think. They do not know who Brooke Astor was. Most of them were not born when she died. They see the name on the plaque. They do not wonder about the woman behind it. They just use the room. Read, study, work. The space serves its purpose. The branch libraries she funded across New York continue operating. In the Bronx, in Harlem, in neighborhoods where the library is the only free internet access, the only air conditioning in summer, the only safe place for children after school. The children who use these libraries do not know that a woman who suffered profound neglect in her final years paid for the building. They just know the books are free. The computers work. The librarians help them with homework. Different children now, different families, but the same purpose. The work continues. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, The Brooke Astor Court in the Asian Art Wing, 44 years since it opened. Visitors from around the world walk through the Chinese garden courtyard. They photograph the lattice windows. They sit by the water features. They read about Ming Dynasty garden design principles. They do not know the woman who funded it lived her last years in squalor. They just experience beauty, tranquility, art that transcends the person who paid for it. The museum welcomes 4 to 5 million visitors annually. A significant portion walk through the Astor Court. That is, millions of people, across decades, experiencing something Brooke Astor created. Most never knowing her name, most never knowing her story. The work outlasts the worker. Somewhere in New York City, the exact locations require research. The documentary has not yet completed. Children play on playgrounds built with Vincent Astor Foundation money in the 1980s and 1990s. Different equipment now, different families, but the same land, the same purpose. Places for children to be safe, to play, to be children. The kids playing today were not born when Brooke Astor died. They will never hear her name. But they play on ground she paid for. Ferncliff, Rhinebeck, New York, Hudson Valley, approximately 200 acres of forest, protected by permanent conservation easement. Brooke donated the land, with one stipulation: it must remain forest forever. The trees grow, the wildlife lives, the ecosystem functions. The land cannot be developed, cannot be logged, cannot be turned into luxury estates or resort hotels or anything except what it is: forest. This is prime Hudson Valley real estate, worth millions if it could be developed. But it cannot. Brooke made sure of that. She gave away the development value to preserve something that cannot be bought back once it is destroyed. The forest does not care who saved it. It just continues. Trees that were saplings when she died are mature now. Animals live and die, and their offspring continue. Water moves through the land. Seasons change. The forest endures. These institutions do not know about the urine-stained sheets, do not know about the son who stole millions, do not know about the codicils signed when she could not remember her own name. They just open their doors every morning, lend books, display art, protect ecosystems, serve people. The work continues without explanation, without justification, without needing anyone to understand the complicated woman who funded it. The gravestones: Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, Westchester County, 2 gravestones, side by side. Vincent Astor, 1891 to 1959. The stone is blank except for his name and dates. No epitaph, no explanation, no summary of who he was or what he did, just he existed. He died. This is when Brooke Astor, 1902 to 2007. The stone says, "I had a wonderful life." 10 words. 105 years reduced to one assertion. She chose those words in 1998, 9 years before she died, before the Alzheimer's, before her son stole from her, before the courts had to intervene, before the world learned what happened in the apartment overlooking Central Park. Did she have a wonderful life? 103 years were perhaps wonderful. 2 years were horror. Does 103 wonderful years out of 105 count as wonderful, or does the ending rewrite everything that came before? The gravestone does not answer. It just states, "I had a wonderful life." Believe it or do not, the stone does not care. Vincent's watch, the one that stopped when the Titanic sank, the one he carried for 47 years, sold at auction in 2024 for approximately $1.5 million. Highest price ever paid for Titanic memorabilia. An anonymous American collector bought it. The watch is in a vault somewhere now. Still stopped. Still carrying meaning for someone who never knew Vincent. Still valuable because of what it represents, not what it is. The Childe Hassam painting flags Fifth Avenue. The one worth $10 million. The one Brooke promised to the Metropolitan Museum was sold in 2002. Anthony took a $2 million commission. The Metropolitan Museum received $20 million in the settlement. Compensation for the painting they should have received, but they did not receive the painting itself. Its current location is not publicly known. Perhaps in a private collection, perhaps hidden away. The public will never see it as Brooke intended. The painting still exists somewhere, but it does not serve the purpose Brooke chose for it. Both objects outlasted the people who owned them. Both continue without needing the humans who gave them meaning. Was Brooke Astor happy? We cannot know. The gravestone says yes. The last years say no. The 48 years of philanthropy suggest maybe. Did her life matter? The libraries say yes. The museums say yes. The forest says yes. The children playing in parks say yes without knowing they are answering. Her son said she should have given me more. What she proved, you can marry into wealth you did not earn. You can spend 48 years giving it away generously. You can fund institutions that serve millions. You can be celebrated, beloved, praised, and still die in conditions that shame the forgotten, because wealth is not armor. Philanthropy is not protection. Fame cannot save you from your own family. But she also proved wealth is for building things that outlast you. Not to prove you deserved it, not to make you happy, not to protect you, just to build. The forest stays wild. The libraries lend books. The museums open their doors. The work continues. Vincent's gravestone says nothing. Brooke's says wonderful. Both tell truth. Neither tells the whole story. The institutions do not care about the complications. They just function. And perhaps that is the only answer that matters. The painting hangs somewhere. The watch sits in a vault. The gravestones stand in the cemetery. And every morning, the library is open, the work continues, and that, perhaps, is enough.